Whoa.
Well,
Whoa.
it shouldn't be,
Hello, Dave.
I don't think it should be recorded until we start the meeting.
All right,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it
agree.
should start it automatically. So I
No,
don't,
it started something. So
so I'll go ahead and move whoever's on the attendee side that should be on the panelists. Let's see. I'll move over Lori Johnson here.
Well, it's good that it gets announced that it's being recorded so we know when to shut up.
That must be a new feature because the last meeting that we had, it didn't have it.
Yeah, that's
Person.
the first time I've ever heard that.
Right.
yeah, me too. That's the first time I ever had that on my screen when I logged in.
Yeah.
Well, I have us about 5 minutes away, so.
3:59.
No, one.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, no, you're right. 1 minute away. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong number.
So Dave Laredo, I got a note from Rob Wellington. I don't know, maybe you were copied on it. Are you going to have a red line for us to look
Yeah,
at?
I saw that. I saw your response. You're much more gracious. I thought, yeah, how do you redline when we're having a strategy session to say what should be in there?
Well, I did tell them when we met without the attorneys that I would try to redline the concepts into the existing agreement for us to look at. So it's been hanging out there, but you didn't formally send it to me until Monday a week ago. And of course, it sat on the shelf for a couple of days before I could even get into it. And it's like, oh, yeah. Who gets done first? The LAFCO memo, so Darren's happy. This one, so Rob's happy, or
Alvin's letter.
Alvin's letter, which we need to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have far too many people on the line here for us to be talking offline.
For us to continue.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's time to start the meeting anyway. I see it's 4 o'clock, so let's call the meeting to order. I do. The Legislative Advocacy Committee on Tuesday, May the 25th at 4 p.m. All 3 members are present, myself, Director Paul, and Director Malik. So let's start with comments from the public. I got your note earlier, Joel, that there's no written comments, but we'll see if there are any verbal comments.
All right.
Yeah,
So we don't
we
have
have no
the
attendees.
attendees.
So no comment.
Oh, okay. So there's no public. Okay. Thank you. All
Not
right.
yet.
Okay. Fair enough. Keep your eyes out. Okay. So the first action item is adoption of the minutes from February 22nd. Any committee member have a comment or a question or want to make a motion?
I don't have any corrections, so I move to adopt, unless someone does, I move to adopt the minutes.
I'll second to move it along. No other, Safwat, any comments at all? And we'll move to a vote.
I don't have any comments.
Let's-
This is my first meeting ever, so I will abstain in approval of this.
Okay, that makes sense.
All right. So Joel, you call the roll, please.
Yes, Director Malik,
Abstain.
Director Paul,
Yes,
Chair White.
approve.
Aye.
All right, so that motion passes.
The next item on the agenda is, well, the series of items are discussion items only. So let's start with JEA, the legislative trackers and consultants for state issues, state legislation.
Yep. So by way of introduction, we do have Lori Johnson and John Arriaga on as panelists. We were 2 ships passing in the night in that we tried to get the packet together for distribution last Thursday morning. Probably minutes after it was put together for distribution, Lori's much more detailed bill tracker came in. They also prepared a memorandum, which Joel, I think you sent out. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the memorandum that Lori Johnson sent to the district has not been distributed to the committee members. The only thing that's included with the packet today is the staff note that we prepared along with the bill tracker that you
The
sent.
three items that were in the original packet. Okay,
Right.
so as soon as this call is over, please distribute the memorandum from Lori. In it, she does cover the governor's
Budget?
revise, the revise to the budget. So she can highlight that as she walks us through this. And then she also has newer information on the bill tracker, which we can touch on because this is the time to go a little bit step by step through both our state and federal bill trackers. So with that, Lori, do you want to present an overview derived from your memo? Sorry, we didn't get that into everybody's hands, but we will after the meeting.
Sure. So thank you for allowing us to speak today. As you know, that there's been a tremendous amount going on in water financing. For the past 2 years, we've been working on the Assembly and Senate water bond proposals as respective as in your packet of AB 1500 by Eduardo Garcia and SB 45 by Senator Portantino. They are respectfully about $7 billion and a $5.6 billion bonds. We also meet weekly and sit on the Aqua Bond coalitions of kind of pushing where we want these big pockets of funding to go to. Both the legislature and the governor have in the past indicated they don't want any real earmarks that have been done in the past. So kind of trying to keep it as broad and competitive as they can. So what happened is around a month ago, the Senate leadership released their budget package. And this is on the heels of the governor announcing emergency declaration of drought. This is a $3.3 billion package. We've been working closely with Aqua. We are in very much support of this. It has broader funding for conveyance as well as dams. And also, both packages, the governor and the Senate, they do have $1 billion for ratepayer recovery, which is essential. A lot of this money is coming from the American Rescue Plan. But the Senate's, what they do is they kind of break it down a little bit more because this is just going in ratepayers in general. So you have electric investor-owned utilities, water agencies, and et cetera. Just the electric and water investor-owned utilities could eat up about $1.7 billion. So they do separate the funds. And also the Senate proposal has most of their money, the money going through the Department of Water Resources, where the governor's has his going through the State Water Resource Control Board. And he always has this language attached to it in the revise that they would develop policies. And I think we all have experienced that, we'd rather have these monies move into existing programs. And so on the 18th, the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District sent a letter to both budget chairs of the Senate and the Assembly supporting the inclusion of $510 million for IRWIM funding. And they're also, we encourage the consideration of funding for other parties such as water quality improvement, recycling, water recycling, dam safety rehabilitation, regional water system interconnectivity, and stormwater management and groundwater sustainability. And the memo that you will receive will essentially breaks down each of these, the pots from both the Senate and the governor. So when we have these 4 competing interests, we have 2 that are legislative and we have 2 that are climate resiliency and water, and they're moving through the budget process. What's happening right now is you have the big 3 with stakeholders, which we are actively participating in, negotiating and kind of coming to a reconciliatory process of how much more funding, where the funding is going to go, who it's going to go through to come through something that will be passed in the budget, and signed come June 30th. But word is, with legislators as well as staffers, is that these bond bills are going to continue to move. That they're looking at this as a stopgap for the drought, of trying to improve some of the water systems, and that these bond measures will continue to move throughout the process. But there's also talk that they want to, instead of putting this on, using these bills as bond measures, that they want to basically at the end of session fund them through general fund with any remaining and needed money for water. So we're still operating on a budget track. Again, Aqua, and we've been is very supportive of the Senate. We have been meeting with the governor's staff of putting the dam safety and rehabilitation is very much a priority for Aqua and its members as well as us, and also the money of how it goes and the expediency in which it goes into, and using existing programs and not trying to rebuild the wheel if they want to get this money out. So we should know more on what this big package as far as the budget looks like in the next 2 weeks. Are there any questions? Dave, did you want to add anything?
No, no, I think that's great. And you highlighted on the fact that we've got these bond initiatives that are more like Prop 1 coming out the backside, but there's all this pushed and free, dollars up for drought relief on the front side. And who knows if they both make it. We'll talk about it later, but we've written some letters of support for drought funding through the IRWM process. So we think that'll actually help the Central Coast, but I'll cover that under the last item.
Director Paul?
Yes, I looked at some of these bills from the spreadsheet. I mean, I went on the legislative tracker so I could see more about them. It looks like there's a possibility that some of this money from one of I can't remember now which bill, but some of the money, there might be money available for replenishing groundwater. Is that your understanding, Lori?
I believe it is in SB 45. And again, Director Paul, we've been working on these bills for the past 2 years. COVID kind of put a halt to it. But that is a major priority for Aqua, is the groundwater and recycled water, as well as all groundwater management. And that is what they've included in the Portantino. That's moved through the process more than 1,500. And usually how it goes legislatively is you have 2 competing proposals in each respective house. And then they basically get worked out, and it's usually the greater of the sum. It's not usually pared down, only in really recessive years economically. And so we will be definitely advocating, as well as other water agencies throughout the state, because that is just a significant issue of retaining those funds in SB 45.
Was Aqua the main the main lobbying arm for these to advocate for these kinds of projects, recycling and groundwater and so on?
Well, my understanding is that these are kind of going back in previous water bonds, that there are pockets of funds, and again there were earmarks taken off of, and so we've been working this coalition of how much to put in each bucket. So if we have all these buckets of funding, here's where we're putting through. Of course, we're going to try to ask for the moon and back. I think at one time, in 2019, we were asking for a $9 billion bond. I mean, dam safety alone and rehabilitation could eat up the whole thing. So it's basically competing priorities up and down the state. Mm-hmm. And Sigma is absolutely a huge one. And the water recycling, that is a priority more from the administration. So there's been a give and take of where they think, because you've got 120 members, and each water agency has different priorities. And so it's really balancing that, because this is a bond. You will need 2/3 of a vote. So it's we've been doing a little bit give and take. But we're trying to retain as much as we can.
And to kind of finish answer that, Karen, the answer is we tend to follow Aqua as the association's lead, advocate for water-related positions, and then California Special Districts Association for leadership on things that would affect special districts. meeting rules, Brown Act stuff. They're starting to cross into each other's territory a little bit these days, but that's where we typically take our lead, but we don't always fall in line, either due to it being specific to some area that won't affect us, or only affecting contractors on the on CalFed projects, Central Valley project, and so forth. So, but yeah, typically if Aqua is advocating for it, we will kind of follow. And as Lori pointed out, they sit with Aqua on these legislative discussions on a regular basis.
Mhm.
Dave, I just want to add to this is that a couple things. The last two administrations, the Jerry Brown administration and this current administration, there's been a real push to come out with a overall plan that will prepare us for these times when we're going into a drought. So we're looking more long term. So I think those are some of the things that we're looking for. And the other thing is some of the work that we do on behalf of the agency is look for opportunities where you've got all the big cities in there, the Los Angeles, the Oakland, the San Jose, and so forth, pushing their weight for dollars in the proposals, and so our efforts are to make sure that some of the smaller agencies also get a piece of the pie. So
Good. Thank you.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
In preparation for June 15th, I have a jacket on.
I've got mine at the cleaners.
Just going back specifically to AB 1500 and SB 45, both have consultant suggestions that we discuss. And the question is whether we want to support it. I'm just curious if we just ought to put follow on there and then play whatever role we can. But I think our support is going to be through Aqua and not independently. That's just my guess.
Yeah, and we're going to get into the tracker and spend a little time on it. And there's reason to support, but certainly we need to discuss. But yeah, stay tuned on that one. Lori, did you get all the way through your memo? I know we were going to talk a little bit about condition 2 and housing, the COVID stuff.
Yeah, did you want to do that before the ledge tracker, Dave?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
I think John was going to open that up. Okay.
Yeah, I only wanted to mention that this has been an ongoing effort. I think Dave early on last year came up with this brainstorming idea of let's push the housing side of things in order to get some a break in the condition 2. And so since then we've had a number of meetings. I think the last meeting that we had of this committee, we talked about our work with the Senate Pro Tem's office and garnering some support there. And I think we got some traction there. We followed that up with a discussion with Senator Laird following that, and he was certainly appreciative and open to assisting us in our needs as we get more specific. And more recently, we got contacted by HCD, the Housing Community Department, to meet via conference call with them. And in fact, it's later on this week on Thursday. So things are moving along. We'll keep on pushing that as an issue where we are moving, trying to find some traction with the housing needs versus the lack of water and how we come to some agreement. So yes.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, so we had a call.
That's Friday.
Ourselves and Dave had a call with Melinda Coy, who was basically a planning manager with the Department of Housing and Community Development. I thought it was a very fruitful call, and it ended with saying, "Hey, let's see what we can do and take this up to her deputies." And so the call that John was referencing that we will be having Thursday morning is with Josh Rosa, who is basically the manager of all unit and policy and programmatic issues that we're elevating it to the top. So that hopefully that will be a very fruitful call and kind of move us in the direction of some type of resolution.
Hey, please tell me that call is on Friday morning.
I'll change it if it needs to be.
No, I think he put out the invite, didn't he?
He sent it, Josh Rosa.
Yeah, so yeah, it's Friday.
It is?
Yeah, Friday, 10:30 is what I got.
Perfect. For some
Yeah.
reason, because we had 2 dates.
Well, check your calendar then, because let's see, Thursday, I don't have anything. And I do want to add to it that John Laird's staff, or John specifically, has been in contact with State Water Board staff. And so Kate Daniel sent me an email earlier today looking for a meeting on Tuesday. And once I've got that meeting information, John and Lori, I'll send it off to you.
Sounds good.
And it could just be an update of what they know and where they're headed. And then Monterey Bay Economic Partnership sent me a list of letters that they've generated. So I will by certainly, hopefully by Friday, but certainly by our call on Tuesday, be able to summarize the letters of support that have been issued. So we'll at least know, kind of where the community stands at this point. And then I've got a call, and I have a call on Tuesday also after that with Steve Westoff of the State Board. So
And this is all related to the condition 2 and kind of getting a little freedom for affordable housing.
Yep. And interestingly, Kate Daniels' message was that they do see one path that might yield some fruit. So that'll be interesting.
Good.
And we do have one caller with a phone number that's local. I'm assuming that's just an attendee public member, but if it's not, and that caller wants to identify his or herself to Joelle, feel free to raise your hand, or I guess as a caller, what do they have to hit, Joelle?
Email address?
It's *6. So I've asked the caller to. Okay.
Hey, this nobody but Chair Edwards. I couldn't get in on Zoom, so it's me. Mute me, please.
Okay.
Glad you're monitoring things, Chair.
Great.
Okay.
Can we spend a little quality time on the ledge tracker? Yeah. So 2 things happen. One is, these all come out of committee eventually, either sliced and diced with a lot of amendments, which in a couple cases have rendered them meaningless to us, or they get put in the suspense file, which, is like a time limited dead zone, so to speak. And so some of these are completely dead at this point. Some of them have become 2-year bills, meaning they're not going to get any action this year. But I did want to go through them. What you got in your packet was some proposed actions from our end. Lori has added her notes that you don't have as to who some of the sponsors are and what the most recent, as of last Thursday, their status is. But let's go through quickly and we can winnow some of these out. And Lori, why don't you and I just go at it? Starting with AB 67, this has been held. Does that mean it's dead?
Yes. And the suspense file, when a bill is held, it essentially means it cannot move this year, and it cannot look like what it does if they try to get out of suspense. It's very hard. Basically, for all intents and purposes, the bill's dead. Okay. So when you do see the track that I give you, and again, they released the suspense calendar on Thursday morning for both the Senate and the House, and it really probably took out about 1/3 of all the bills. Yeah. And also what they do on the committee is they send bills out with amendments, and it can completely change the bills. They'll pass them and the committee can rewrite their bills. So a lot, as Dave said, a lot of these are moot points. But a lot of these have changed to where we may want to take a closer look. So
on this one, so you've said it's going to become a 2-year bill. So we should continue to follow, and I think follow will be the statement, because it'll come back in some way, shape, or form. The AB 100, the Holden, We were going to drop anyway due to relevance, and it's in the suspense file as well. So for the benefit of the committee, I'm recommending dropping coverage of that bill.
Mhm.
The next one, AB 125.
This is what we talked about, Revis's agricultural kind of wildlife water mini bond. It's $3 billion. We've been working close with his office. He knows that it's a very bold initiative and that it was going to be a 2-year issue. We will continue to work with his office, especially on everything as far as agricultural water use, recycling, and whatnot. But again, it's very broad. It goes from everywhere from biodiversity to farm worker housing to incentivizing manufacturers. As I said, it's a very bold agenda, but we do like what he's doing and we do like money. So we'll continue on work on that.
And we, the district, probably won't see much of this, but because in general we support Robert Revis, then this is why I'm suggesting that we support it cautiously. So if they need a letter of support, we would do that as a courtesy. He's got a couple of other bills that we didn't like whatsoever, but my suggestion to the group is to support it if asked at some point in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. The next one, AB 252, also a Revis bill. This is the repurposing of land due to SGMA. So if you can no longer pump due to a groundwater sustainability plan, this is not really going to affect us, which is why I'm suggesting showing no opinion or support for the same reasons, that it's not really going to benefit us, but it's the concept's interesting. You know, help from the government to repurpose land to avoid some of the SGMA issues.
Mhm.
Okay.
But does that mean, Dave, does that mean follow as opposed to just no opinion? I mean,
Well, this is one where if asked for a letter of support, we would want to do it out of support for Revis and not for the bill itself, similar to the last one. I don't think we're going to see anything out of it. So it's just one of those, but you know, he's had a couple of bills that we definitely wouldn't want to support. And so we need to pick our battles or pick our levels of support. So this one, I'm just suggesting support due to, consideration of our local. I mean, he doesn't even cover any of our service territory. His district carves right around us, but he does cover some pure water Monterey.
So support, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one, AB 271, this is all Santa Clara Valley, Anderson Dam oriented. So that's why I'm suggesting we drop it.
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds right.
303, this is something that won't really affect us, but it is interesting to see if there's going to be, aquaculture. It would likely come more likely to the Moss Landing area than here, but interesting. So I just said, let's follow it.
Mhm.
The next.
I'll just add, I have heard there are some very specific interests up in Moss Landing for this idea, this culture, commercial.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
AB 301 Quirk, I'm suggesting that we drop it due to no real impact on the district. Which then brings us to AB 315. It's in a suspense file, so it may disappear.
No, it is moving.
It is moving, okay.
Yes.
So, habitat restoration, there are things that cross over with district interests, which is why I have in it to follow or support. What you don't see on your sheet is Aqua is a supporter. The land trust supports it. So I would suggest we support it, but not actively unless we see something that's going to apply to the Carmel River watershed.
Okay, I agree with that.
Me too.
AB 336. This one is kind of quirky. It's just about joint powers law. The reason I've said follow or support is just, from time to time, we've heard things like, well, why don't you form a separate JPA with Monterey One Water to finance something? Or why don't you form a separate JPA with County Water Resources Agency to take over CalAm, et cetera, et cetera. So I lean more towards follow at this point, just to see if there are any opportunities for us.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that too.
The next one, AB 339, this one originally we were opposed to, a lot of folks were opposed to, but they've amended it to not really apply to us. It doesn't really apply to special districts, and they increased it to cities or counties with at least 250,000 people.
And
So
they
for
removed the interpretation requirements, and they put a sunset on it.
Yeah, I mean, this one, if you guys hadn't followed it, this is a classic Brown Act thing. They were going to have you post your agenda in 3 languages that aren't English, provide both in-person, telephonic, and internet. Now it's just telephonic or internet access to the public. All that would come at a fairly high cost, and it was unfunded. So for that reason, I suggest we drop it. And if something else like it comes up in the future, we'll add it back in.
Sounds good.
I agree.
The next one, AB 350, doesn't really apply to the district. For that reason, I'm suggesting we drop it.
Good.
Okay.
AB 361 is a much milder version of dealing with open meetings and teleconferences. It actually does steer things in our direction to continue doing these kind of teleconference meetings if and when necessary. All of the agencies we look to, CSDA and AQUA, as well as the California Municipal Utilities Association, support it. So I think we would, even though I said discuss, I think we're really looking at support.
And isn't this just for emergency situations?
It is, and I think what they're trying to do here is make it so you don't have to rely on a governor's declaration, so that you could get back into this mode a little more quickly.
Well, just on that point, Dave, if we were to face rationing down the road.
Yeah, a local emergency.
Yeah, okay, that's my question. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. I have to read a little bit deeper into the bill summary, but I do believe that's what it's attempting to do, is extend it to, regionalized problems.
Yes.
Or being
It's a declared local emergency.
Yep.
So you're suggesting support?
I'm suggesting support, and there's 2 times a year that hopefully not every year, but there's 2 types of emergencies we call. One is flood on the river, for erosion purposes, and one is ration. So I could see some use for us in the long run.
Be prepared.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be prepared.
Okay.
Moving along, Robert was very busy this session.
Well, I'll say.
Lori, you've mentioned this has become a 2-year bill.
Yeah. Let me take this one. So 377 was a nasty, horrible, the most god-awful bill any water agency or ag stakeholder had ever seen. It basically revised enforcement for water quality, bringing it back to the standard that, what we promised 75 years ago with stormwater and et cetera. And it allowed locals to sue local agencies, cities, counties, whatever water agencies for non-compliance. Everyone, and we discussed this last time, and kind of how Dave mentioned it before. If we don't have to oppose, I really recommend we don't, especially with local legislators. And everyone from the counties, the cities, the special districts, every ag association out there, every water agency. In fact, when they testified at the hearing, it was 11 minutes of Me Too's. It was just devastating. And if you can see the bill now, it's been so watered down. It's basically a report, an evaluation And it doesn't matter. He tried to do something bad and they will still try to kill it. Anyways, at the end, this is a 2-year bill. It is not moving anywhere. And so everyone can breathe a sigh of relief because this was probably one of Aqua's biggest opposed bills. And we can stay out of it cleanly.
Yeah, yeah, and that's well stated. Stay out
So we'll
of it.
just follow it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and again, for the bill to move or the issue to move, it has to be either reintroduced or he has to just significantly amend the existing bill in the suspense for them to move it out. So I would say pretty much the bill's dead, but let's look for the issue next year.
Yep.
Okay.
AB 473 is just follow. It's some tweaking with the Brown Act or the Public Records Act, which based on the bill summary, there's not enough to say it's good or bad, I think, at this point. And it's probably not going to make it through. The next two, AB 585 and 621, are recommended to drop because of a lack of impact on the district. And
the next one dealing with the Brown Act, this is again a 2-year bill, and this is different. This was not held in appropriations. This bill just didn't move any at all. It did not have a policy hearing, so this bill is very dead. This is a very, what they're trying to do is a very time-sensitive issue, so we will not be seeing this from this author or in this bill. And the same could be said for
Lori,
747.
So we could drop both
Yes.
of those? Okay.
Yeah, and 747. That never even had a hearing.
Yep. Good to know. Moving quickly. 754, we've got follow.
Wait a minute, how did we get so far along? Didn't we skip 712, 747?
703 and 747. Did we have a 712 in there?
There's a
Hey, look at that.
712.
Huh.
Yeah, so I when I did your track, I kind of removed bills that I didn't think were very
That you knew were
applicable
dead.
anymore.
Yep.
That I
Yep.
knew were dead, that they weren't applicable, that they were the amendments taken were outside our purview. So the track you'll get from me is a very cleaned up track that will show all the position and all the notes and all the amendments.
Well, it'll be cleaner after this conversation. So yeah, I was looking at Lori's and not mine on the screen. So you're right, George. So AB 712 was dropped based on her knowledge.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
703 and 747. We talked about 703 and then jumped to 747. So now we're back. 754. I think we agree on follow.
Mhm.
Lot of environmental support, a lot of rural support.
Yeah.
The next one
Is
819.
AB 19. Yes.
Let's make sure, because what we have on our agenda is, and we need to cover each one of those, even though it only takes 10 seconds, but AB 781, which
Right.
is recommended drop, and that's, I assume you're going to want to drop it. Okay.
Oh, also because it was all Orange County.
Okay. Okay, now AB 819.
Yep. Thanks for keeping us on the straight and narrow, because you're right. There's paper and electronic are different. Yeah, so 819. Lori, were you about to say something about that one?
Yeah, so essentially this, what Assemblymember Levine is doing. So due to the pandemic, Newsom issued an executive order permitting certain posting and filing requirements under CEQA to be carried out electronically. Of course, due to COVID, this order allows projects to proceed with CEQA review during the pandemic and without physically posting or filing project notices and documents with the county clerk and putting people at risk for exposure. Essentially what this bill is it codifies this executive order. I would actually hold off on any opposition. As we know, the governor on June 15th is going to revoke a bunch of executive orders and COVID requirements, and we want to see if this one goes with it.
So what do you suggest? Just a follow, but not support?
I was suggesting that let's wait about 3 weeks. If he doesn't reject it, or if he keeps it, that means that he'll want this bill to codify it. Then we go in and I'll draft an opposed letter and we'll get it out. So we'll I don't like opposing if we don't have to, if I know things are going to naturally die. So I will say oppose and revisit in 3 weeks.
Yep. Or I'm going to reverse that to wait until after June 15th or oppose, but we're on the same page.
Okay.
AB 878, is that the next one? No, 821.
Yes.
Never should have been on ours anyway, just
Okay.
kind of snuck in
I
there.
was going to ask.
Yeah, this, as you can see, was a gut and amend that it does not apply to us anymore. So I dropped it from our track,
Oh, got it.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the,
as well as
yeah, so.
I did drop AB 850 because again, this is a district bill. But Dave, you want to discuss that deals with El Monte, Montebello, and Willows?
Well, I just wanted to point out that I believe 2 of these are under agreement with Cal-Am buying them. So I thought we might want to just keep an eye on this bill. And I'll have to check. El Monte's the one that really jumped out at me. But we're authorizing the cities to sell their publicly owned utilities to basically to investor-owned water utilities. So I think we're going to want to keep track on 850 with no actual action, just to see what it does.
Is there opposition? Do you know? Does anybody know if there's opposition to this?
I don't know. And this one just jumped out at me a couple days ago because originally when I looked at it, I said, oh, it's all Southern California and Central Valley. And then I said, wait a minute, I remember seeing one of these in a rate case. So I need to investigate it more. And that's why I had discuss on the page, but it's really going to be follow.
Let's just follow it. Yeah.
Let's
Thank you.
follow.
Then we get to 878. Oh,
Yeah.
878. Really nothing here except that I could see either a Carmel River Watershed Conservancy, some other, Big Sur Land Trust, or somebody else coming up with a kind of a community preservation plan and looking to do something with it. So I thought we should follow this, even though I don't foresee it being direct business for the district.
It looks like the only legal change is from 21 calendar days to 21 business days.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
pretty inconsequential, I think.
inconsequential, exactly.
So we can drop it?
I'd be happy to drop it to make our pages cleaner. I only put follow in because I knew that we weren't really going to fall all over ourselves to support or oppose it. But let's drop it.
Yeah, let's.
Yeah, good idea, Karen.
Okay, so
bigger
then we
fish.
get to 885, which is another attempt to improve the open meetings.
Yeah, and this one, and Dave, this one again has never even had a hearing. It's not moving at all.
Can we drop it then?
Gone. Oh, yes.
Yeah, let's drop it.
If it hasn't had a policy committee, I am recommending drop.
Cool. I like it.
Good.
AB 1001, is that our next one?
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, it's not really in our wheelhouse, so I was suggesting to drop. Lori's notes is it's already kind of a 2-year bill at this point anyway, so I vote for dropping so we can reduce the number of pages.
I'm good for dropping because of irrelevance or lack of relevance.
Yep.
Same.
And then Lori's already dropped AB 1037. And I trust her judgment.
Is that a 2-year bill or what?
Yeah, I don't have her notes on it other than it got removed. So I don't know, Laura, you have anything on, it's the
It was dealing with digital construction.
Yeah.
I just didn't see it if it applies.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And the reason I remember I said follow was just, I don't know, do we need to? But yeah, it's basically requiring big construction projects to use online construction management programs.
Yeah,
so
it's
that
50 million
people
or
follow it.
above.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You know, if it becomes law, then we'll abide by it. If it doesn't become law, I don't think we care enough to talk about it. So.
Okay,
Okay, and then you have 1058 by Christina Garcia, and this essentially authorizes a water corporation with more than 10,000 service connections to recover and rates the transaction costs relating to all payment options. This is credit cards, debit cards, prepaid cards. Back in 2016, the PUC had a pilot program with 3 large water corporations to start to undertook pilot projects to waive card-related transaction fees between January and July of 2019. So basically, they want to continue this going. David's recommending opposed, but I just want to let you know that Aqua, or the California Water Association, and the California Water Service, they are supporting it. Aqua is staying out of it.
Yeah, well, and the reason I said oppose, so California Water Association is the investor and utility version of Aqua. So it's very small. There's only, I think, 8 or 9 Class A utilities, so the big utilities, which is more than 10,000 connections. But what I didn't like about this was this bill would delete water corporations from the above described authorization to offer credit card and debit card payment. And we've just spent 3 years getting to the point where we can take credit cards. And so, you know, take the next step mentally. If we move into condemnation proceeding and we want to keep doing credit cards, then we would have to, you know, if this passed, we would be restricted, and we'd want to, you know, come back later and say, no, water utilities should have the same option that electric and gas do. So it just seemed kind of silly to carve it out the way they did.
Well, but it says water corporation, so would that apply to public?
No,
publicly owned?
it would apply to Cal-Am, which I guess, to your point, if it's a different set of rules for publicly owned, then we don't inherit their rules. We would inherit our rules. So maybe we don't care.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. No, that's a good discussion. And I follow your thinking. So let's drop it.
well, why don't we follow it to see what happens, because we ought to know.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right. Sorry, Ferguson Group, we're almost done here.
It's okay.
AB 1164. It's interesting in that, you know, it's kind of interest. It's mostly the large scale dam owning public agencies, but I thought we should at least follow it.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. And by the way, just to reiterate, what this does is by, you know, choosing to follow just means we'll report back. But if we choose to oppose or choose to support, that gives Lori and myself authorization to draft a letter when we get called on. And a lot of times you get called on to do this, you know, 4 days before committee meeting or a week before committee meeting and so forth. So, so 1250 Calderon.
Yeah, and so this basically establishes the Consolidation for Safe Drinking Water Act of 2021 and sets timeframes by which the PUC must take action on requests for water system consolidation. Aqua is supporting this. The CPUC is not opposing, but they have big concerns. So, and there were recent amendments taken on there that set up a fund to basically pay for all of this.
Right. And one of the reasons we have problems, and not just as the district, but as public agency owned water utilities, are there's 2 sets of rules here. So again, the Class A investor owned water utilities only serve about 14 to 15% of all urban water in the state of California. But they get to do a couple of things that public agencies don't under Prop 218. One is we public agencies cannot subsidize a class of service. And so a lot of these consolidations are so that a well-heeled, large-scale utility can come in and buy a struggling utility and then just fold them into the rate base and make bigger investments in the struggling utility, subsidized by the whole rate base or the whole
All the
setting.
customers.
All the customers.
Yeah.
Which, and so that's one. And two, which is not the case here, but it might actually come into play, is the investor-owned utilities have greater flexibility for low-income ratepayer assistance programs, where, so basically they can subsidize people below the income levels with everyone else's rates and charges, which again, under Prop 218, we cannot do. So, if we were to become the owner, it'll be a different set of rules, of course, but that's what we want to pay attention to, because what this does is it incentivizes investor-owned utilities to collect up and tuck in smaller, struggling public water agencies or mutual water companies. And so it's one of those that in my heart, I would say I'm opposed to if I'm in favor of public ownership, but we certainly need to keep our eye on this one.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I'll just put follow in for now. And if it gains traction, we can always change that.
Yeah,
Okay.
follow looks good. I had just had a general question, Dave, about the outlying services from Cal-Am. If we were to move ahead with some acquisition, are those smaller systems kind of subject to, well, Cal-Am's the only one in the area, so would they fall into that category kind of?
Well, and they're not the only one. You got Cal Water Service in the Salinas area, as well as Alco, but
Right.
Alco's almost too small. But yeah, they'd fall into that. What this is designed to do is to actually incentivize the healthy utilities to consolidate up the unhealthy utilities. Small, struggling water quality issues, need nitrate treatment, that kind of thing.
Didn't we actually have this problem? I would say we as a district didn't have it, but our county had the problem up in North County. Weren't there some struggling districts, water supply systems that were just kind of failing or were losing interest or?
Yeah, and the courts came in and actually had, and those were also Alco. Those were Tom Adcock and his family owned a bunch of systems. A couple got acquired by California American. Several got acquired by Pajaro Sunny Mesa. So it happens. It definitely happens.
Well, let's just follow this. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. The next one is 1408. I think we can agree on dropping.
Yeah.
I don't think it has any really real applicability to us. The next one, 1434.
Dave,
Nope.
this is dead. It's not
Yeah.
moving. It never had a policy committee. We can
I
drop
just wanted to let you know it's coming back up in a different fashion, which I will talk about in a little bit. But there's another bill to, well, it's not a bill, it's a regulatory effort by the Department of Water Resources, where they would set new residential gallons per capita per day standards for indoor water use. I believe Aqua has just asked for its member agencies to join in a coalition letter opposing that regulatory effort. And so I think it's on the same topic, and I'd like your authorization today to join in the Aqua effort to oppose more rigid gallons per capita per day standards. These, the 48 and 40, 48, 44, and 40, would have been onerous in most of the state. And so given that now Aqua has a new position, what I want to do is drop this bill from here, but here the committee generally authorize us as the district and working with Lori and John to participate along with Aqua in coalition letters and individual letters if asked.
I'm good with that. What do you think, Karen?
I agree.
Okay.
Safwat, do you have any comment on giving GM the authority to issue a letter as requested and necessary?
I'd follow Dave's recommendation.
Okay, we're in. Good.
Super. All right, we're almost out of the assembly. This was AB 1500, which George, you highlighted and Lori talked about at the beginning. This is just another big water bond. I don't think we have any choice but to support it. We'll have to scrub it pretty hard to see what's going to impact us. But you know, if it makes it through, I think we would want to support it. They tend to take money from these bond issues and put it straight into the geographic distribution, the IRWM. So like in Pure Water, we applied for Prop 1 funds through their stormwater grant program and through the recycled water grant program, which, you know, we did. But then they also put money into the IRWM, which is regional, and we've got that cost sharing agreement. So anything that happens to find its way in there is like, should be solid money for the district. So that's why I'd say we'll support it.
Well, I just want to add too, if I can, Lori's comment earlier about trying to create a new policy statement in some, or policy direction in some process that just, why not just fold it into an existing structure that exists? I support that thinking. I just want to add that comment.
Great.
Yeah, and both these bonds do. So that goes with the next one of or the Portino SB 45.
Yeah, is that like its sister bill?
Yep.
And the two will end up being blended together at some point. Yeah.
We have to make one big super bill.
Yeah. So in between there is SB1, sea level rise. I'm suggesting we drop it due to relevance.
Can't talk right now.
And then we'll support SB 45 as well. If we're going to do AB 1500, it'll just be same letter.
Agreed. And then SB 83, what's your prognosis on this one?
Did we skip AB 1553 or did I miss it?
Yeah, what did I say on
I think
that?
we're going to drop that, right?
Yeah, because it's all like hazardous waste cleanup.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And also, I think it's geographically limited, as I recall. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
let's drop.
It's in the city of Long Beach in the county. So when they start narrowing in, I pull them out.
Okay.
The
right.
Allen bill. So SB 83 by Senator Allen. This would establish a sea level rise revolving loan program for the purpose of providing low interest loans to local jurisdictions for the purpose of vulnerable coastal properties. This is supported by the Sierra Club, Nature Conservancy, Surfrider Foundation. No real opposition. I think for all intents and purposes, it looks great, or it looks good. It's just on your discretion of if you want to put your name on it.
Right. And all I could think of here would be the Carmel River Free Project or something else that's dealing with either the lagoon here. Well, City of Monterey has a sea level rise problem with Lake Aguajito. Carmel Bay has a sea level rise problem. And then if Cal-Am's desal plant were ever to be built or some other reasonable facsimile thereof, then they'll have a sea level rise problem. I think we just follow it.
Okay.
All right. So SB 83 takes us to SB 222, Dodd.
Yeah, Aqua, the municipal utility special districts, and about 15 other water districts are opposing this. Coast Keepers, Sierra Club, League of Voters, a broad spectrum of environmental groups are supporting. It's the classic kind of bills that we get with water rate assistance programs. I guess I agree with Dave's recommendation to follow. I don't know if this is a fight we want to get into, and if we don't kind of like it, there's enough heavy hitters to do it for us.
Yep.
Agree.
Okay.
I agree too.
And the dog bill, same thing, but that is a 2-year bill that was held in suspense.
Yeah, isn't it dead at this point?
Well, yeah, it's, if we want to go back over what held bills are, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not in a great coma.
All right, you got it. Okay.
And the Hertzberg bill, this is one of the rare bills where the Coast Keepers and Aqua and the municipal utilities all are on the same side and support it, no opposition.
So then I guess what you're suggesting is that we can
follow.
Yeah, I was following because it looked like it would impact the Pure Water Monterey project more than anything we do. Because it's stormwater and municipal wastewater. So let's follow.
Good.
Okay.
274, Wykowski.
Yeah, Aqua, and just to let you know, Aqua and the CMUA and Labor all support this.
Huh.
I know, strange bedfellows, but yes, they do.
Yeah, and what's interesting is it has a little bit of flavor of
what we dealt with 2 years ago about the retention of emails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that Arlene just hated up and down.
I did too. I guess following is okay. You know, my choices were follow or oppose. I'm not sure we're ready to oppose, so why don't we follow and see where it goes?
And you know what? If you want me to dig a little deeper on this one, I have no problems on doing it. As you can see, there's so many that there are just a great number of bills trying to redo the Brown Act and all the meetings and due to the past year. You're going to see a lot of them just be weeded out, and they'll just be one, you know, comprehensive bill that everyone's on board. And I mean everywhere, everyone, the special district, counties, cities, most of the local agencies.
Okay.
Yeah, I was noticing that too, and I'm glad to hear what you said, Lori.
Yeah, they will all, because if you look at them, they're all kind of the same. They just redo it. They will all come into 1 or 2 bills. And John had a discussion with Assembly Member Rivas, and he basically reiterated the same thing.
Good.
Okay. Getting close to
we
the
already
end.
support 323.
Right. Yeah, we did that in between our last meeting and this meeting. We gave them our permission to use our name on a letter, coalition letter. So we'll continue to support it as needed.
And the Caballero bill that got held, so that's not moving, but we can still follow it.
Is that 351 you're talking now?
Correct. Yeah. It got held.
Okay.
And then
we'll keep it on there.
403.
That struck me as really bizarre, this bill, because, you know, innovation is, you know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you mean what? The Caballero bill? Yeah.
Yeah, 351. It's like, okay, that's innovation.
It was,
you know.
It was very vague. I think it was going to be bigger than it was.
Yeah, make findings and declarations regarding the need for water innovation.
Well, yeah, and basically it was amended on April, I think 20th. So basically, it's establishing the Office of Water Innovation within the Water Commission.
Well, you know, I mean, there's nothing stopping agencies from innovating now. And why do we need a new office? Right? A new.
Well, because anytime they need to do something, they want someone to pay for it. And they actually need statutory authority to sift that money over. So that's what makes it just a little bit arduous.
Well, is that for follow or is it dead? What do we think?
I think we should follow it. She's our local legislator. We'll see what she comes out with. It's gonna, again, for it to get even out, it's gonna have to look extremely different, or she's gonna have to cut all costs to jump appropriations committee. So, but I'm curious on where this might go. So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I say we keep it. There's no harm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Follow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and kind of the same discussion for 403. This
I
again,
think this one we could have posed.
yeah, well, and that's, it's very, very similar to the assembly bill of the same nature. So I'm okay with oppose because I don't like it.
Well, I like that Aqua, the special districts have taken a lead on it, of opposing it.
Of opposing it, correct.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just neat. Sometimes there's enough that we don't need to, and sometimes there's not, there's enough to give us cover, and that our position means more.
Yep.
And I like oppose for this one.
Okay. SB 427.
So
Again,
this allows local agencies that provide water services just to adopt ordinances and penalties for water theft up to $3,000.
Yep. And we think we've already got authority under our administrative rules, but, because we were legislatively created. But Aqua's supporting it. Regional Water Authority, which is a conglomeration of Sacramento area water districts, are supporting it. So, I think we could either support it or follow it.
It's your call. I support both.
Yeah, I would say, support is fine if the committee's fine with that.
Yeah, I'm good. That was I circled support when I went through this. So that's my first inclination, even though I don't remember what I was thinking at the time. But
It's hard when there are 54 bills, right?
I know.
But
well, that's why we're trying to
fine
drop
with
some of
support.
them. SB 463, I can't see any reason to do anything but follow it.
Okay.
Okay.
Same with Wilkes Bill 520.
Yeah, well, we took Laird's bill off 479, which was just unrelated to anything we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, he amended that.
Okay. But again, just go from paper to electronic. And then what about Will? What was your?
The same thing. It's
Just
I
follow.
didn't see. Yeah, I didn't see it any direct application to the district.
Yep. Min is
And that's a
kind of
2-year
same
bill.
thing. Yeah, okay, so that's just a follow. And then the Hertzberg bill, I see in your notes, Lori, that CMUA, League of Conservation Voters, Local Government Commission support it.
And Aqua's staying off of it.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And maybe, on Monday, maybe I'll ask Cindy or Adam why that is. Because usually where CMUA goes, Aqua follows.
Yeah. Well, let's follow this one. I think it's because these are small systems. We do, within the district, we have a number of these that qualify as small systems. So I think we should follow it just to see what the meaning is and whether, I don't think we have any real regulatory, well, we have regulatory authority, but we don't really have a regulatory interest. So it's, I would agree with follow. That takes us then, missing bill, the Hueso.
And I pulled that off the track. I didn't think it was, I mean, it's a feel good bill. It really is, but I just didn't think it applied to the district. Unless I'm wrong, I can put it back on. I think it's a great bill.
No, I like it off.
Okay.
So drop 604 is what you're suggesting?
Yes.
Yeah, I had already done it. So Dave and I have with the track that you'll get, you won't see it on there.
Yeah. Lori, you have under 627, it's a 2-year bill. I had dropped. How would you reconcile?
Yeah, and again, it's not moving at all. It never had a hearing. It was basically introduced. So it's just a vehicle that will be gutted sometime next year to something new.
to something new. All right, so I'm going to put that down as a drop, just to
Yep.
clear our desk a little bit. And then the last one is
Yeah, so this basically it adds de-energization events.
This is Texas Nightmare. Is that what they're
Well,
talking about?
Exactly to the list of
no,
situations.
it's also wildfire nightmare. All of the public safety power shutdowns, where they just roll blackouts if you're at risk of starting a wildfire. It would apply there as well. So, I think we, at a minimum, follow it or support it.
I'm fine for either one.
I'm fine for following it because didn't even see what happens. I mean, there's too much going on.
Yep. Okay. That concludes the state bill tracking. Lori, I'll take your most recent version since you've added a column.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll just clean up what I have now and clean up all the bills, and I will have that to you tomorrow morning.
How about,
if that's okay?
How about hold on that one? I'll clean up your last version since I've got notes all over mine, and we'll see if then what you see when I send it to you is what you would have sent to me.
Perfect.
All right, good. I think that concludes our state coverage. We thank the patient people on the East Coast. I already talked to Roger about this. I had meant to schedule our legislative advocacy meetings, like at 2:00 in the afternoon. So it's 5:00 East Coast time, but failed to do that on this one. So again, my apologies to our East Coast.
Baby, you've been such a good girl. You've been such a good girl on our call. Sorry.
Hey, Karen, you hit stop video, but not stop mute.
She's muted on my screen.
Oh, good. Okay.
Well, now she's.
Yeah, sorry.
All right. So we have Stephanie Missert from Ferguson Group. I thought I saw Chris Kearney. Yep, there's Chris.
Yeah.
Roger Gwynn.
Hello.
Yeah, Roger, you want to take
And
us
Rebecca,
through the
sure,
federal
and Rebecca Bliss also. So yeah, I'd be happy to start. We just really want to cover a couple of things. The FY22 appropriations process, President's budget request will be coming up shortly. We'll talk a little bit about that. We want to give you an update on the infrastructure package, where things stand there. A little information about the American Rescue Plan, which I'm sure many of you are aware of, and what opportunities are there for funding. And then we'll touch on the legislative tracker on the federal side, which is a bit shorter, I think, than certainly the state product. But just to give you a little brief update on FY22 appropriations process, President's budget request is expected to be submitted to Congress on Friday. Overall, we're expecting about a 16% increase in domestic spending. For Monterey, Peninsula Water Management District will be reporting on funding for Title 16 and Water Smart, the storage account and ecosystem restoration funding under the WIN Act, and a few other accounts, but particularly on things like, for example, on Title 16, we are expecting more robust numbers than we've seen in the past. For example, the last administration's budget request for Title 16, again, that's the federal water reuse program, has been a source of funds for the Pure Water Monterey project. That budget request came in at $3 million. Congress ultimately approved $63 million. For that account, and plus another $20 million under the WIN Act. So we're expecting that the budget requests this time from this administration will probably be closer to those final numbers as opposed to the lower numbers that we saw from the last administration. On Water Smart, we're probably going to see a similar kind of bump in the budget request. again, Water Smart last go around was the budget request in the last administration was 7.9 million. The final number was 55 million. We'll probably see something closer to, again, the enacted level for in FY21 in terms of budget request for FY22.
Yeah, let's
in addition,
hold there, Roger, just for a second, let's hold
sure.
there. So for the benefit of the committee, the Title 16 and WIN Act is where the grant for Pure Water Monterey came from. And
correct.
The Water Smart program, they actually have a variety of, call them sub-programs, or, a variety of programs. And that's where our joint basin study with the Bureau of Reclamation came from, as well as our drought contingency plan, some of which you might say were good exercises, some of which might not be great exercises, but nevertheless. And then we also got a planning grant for Pure Water Monterey from the Water Smart program. So.
Right, and we'd expect that, we're hoping that with these programs will be, again, more robustly funded, and there'll be opportunities for implementation dollars too going forward. Some of that may be made available in the context of the infrastructure package as well, but again, the regular bill should be, again, more robustly funded. In terms of, we also may see for the first time the WIN Act allocations in the budget request occurring at the same time as the budget request. And certainly Dave's aware of the fact that normally the allocation of funding for a prior year appropriated funds, again, as Dave said, the kind of funding that the Pure Water Monterey project has received in the past. And again, that project has received 19.5 million thus far from the Title 16, the Bureau of Reclamation's water reuse program authorized under the WIN Act. So those allocations normally occur quite late in the year, but we may see the budget requests include the allocation of the $20 million that was appropriated actually in the last fiscal year for the water reuse projects. And so we'll keep you posted on that. So frankly, the Pure Water Monterey project could receive an allocation of an extra $500,000, but for reasons we'll talk a little bit about it a little bit later, the district and probably Monterey One Water would probably turn that down, I suspect, if it is offered. But we'll talk about that in a second. But the return of a couple other things quickly on the FY22 process. Earmarks, as we discussed in the last committee meeting, have been reinstated. They were reinstated, as we discussed, on the House side at the last meeting. Since the last, let's say, Advocacy Committee meeting, the Senate also agreed to reinstate earmarks. Senator Feinstein and Senator Padilla both participated in that process and did accept earmark request. Congressionally directed spending requests is what they're calling them on the Senate side. And the district did support Monterey One Water's request for an earmark through that process as well to both Senate offices. So that's something we'll be watching going forward, again, in the FY22 process as it moves forward. Looking ahead, we believe the earmark process will likely be expanded further in the FY23, which will create additional opportunities for federal assistance for the district, again, in FY23 and beyond. As we discussed in the last meeting, you may recall on the House side, the members were restricted to just 10 requests across all of government. And so it just really was very limiting to the House side. Plus they restricted the number of accounts that could be funded. What the Senate did was expand the number of accounts, and obviously, as you might expect, the senators were not restricted on the number of requests that they could pursue and seek in the appropriations process. So again, I think that we'll likely see in FY23 and beyond an opening up of that whole process, which will be great for the district and the district's projects that they're partnering with others on. The last thing on this before we move to the infrastructure package is just to give you a sense of how quickly things move. And we're going to see the appropriations process on the House side move at lightning speed, and it's just kind of interesting to watch. But the actual markups will begin at the subcommittee level on the House side on June 24th. And then over a 3-week period between then and the 16th of July, they're going to mark up in full committee all of the bills. So you're going to go through subcommittee. That's 12 appropriation subcommittees. They're going to mark up in subcommittee and mark up in full committee, all within that little 3-week period. And then there's a sprint to get them all approved past the full House and out of the House and over to the Senate before the August break. And technically, right now that break is scheduled to start on July 30th. Probably it'll be extended another week, but nonetheless, even with another week, that's going to be moving at lightning speed. It's going to go quickly there and then just grind to a halt on the Senate side, though. And we don't know exactly. The Senate won't even start markups of their bills until July at the earliest. So it'll be an interesting process. But anyway, we'll be watching again the funding levels for water reuse and water smart, other sources of funding for the district going forward in that process. Let me just turn real quickly to Chris. We'll talk about infrastructure package, give you an update there on what's happening on the House and Senate side. Chris.
Thanks, Roger. Good afternoon, everyone. Hit a couple of highlights and then happy to take questions. I think on infrastructure, we are starting to see the conventional wisdom become true. It looks like the White House continues to work with Republicans, primarily in the Senate, to try to bridge a gap on hard infrastructure, traditional infrastructure. There's talk just this afternoon that the Republicans will offer a counter at as high as $1 trillion in spending, which brings them about $700 million from the White House. But the source of that funding in terms of where the Senate Republicans get their money remains a question. So fundamentally, what is defined as infrastructure? How do you pay for it? Are two of the key issues that keep the parties apart. But it appears that if they're going to reach a deal on infrastructure, it's likely to be on hard infrastructure. Other matters under the umbrella of infrastructure that would be perhaps more controversial or perhaps outside the traditional scope of that are likely to move in a separate package, probably more in a more party line, more partisan type process. Very much in the background of the press, you may be reading about that hard infrastructure, and those discussions have been a lot of conversations in both the House and Senate about drought, about Western infrastructure, Western water infrastructure. Of particular interest to you all is the ongoing negotiations that Senator Feinstein is having with her colleagues and frankly with us to some extent on what does the outline of her package look like? A core interest, of course, that we've talked about before in the previous draft is raising the ceiling on the eligibility for Title 16 programs to $30 million. If you've not reached the $20 million cap by June of this year, you all are just under that. So that remains in play. The House, we referenced it earlier, Jared Huffman from California, who's also chairman of a key subcommittee in the Resources Committee, has reintroduced his Future Act, his kind of Western water infrastructure bill. It also explicitly contains that same provision. Of note, he also creates a water infrastructure fund, which admittedly doesn't start till 2032, but it would establish effectively a guaranteed stream of $100 million in revenue for Title 16 funding. So that's out there as well. The prospects for each of those bills honestly remains a little bit uncertain as sort of this umbrella top line hard infrastructure conversation makes its way through the process. But one of the main things we have going for us is very well engaged California Democrats in majority Democrat chambers who are well respected in their space and have as good a chance of moving the legislation as anyone. So we'll continue to work with them, keep close as the moving parts and these pieces kind of run in the background. So that's where we are on that at the moment.
Excellent.
And then Stephanie, you want to give the committee an update on the recovery plan?
Let me slow
rescue
down.
plan.
Director Paul, did you have a question? I saw your hand up.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you. The Jared Huffman bill that you described, that Roger, you just described, as you said that has support from California Democratic members by and large.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's Mr. Huffman is from California as a Democrat.
Yes.
And
I know who he is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. In fact, it's interesting, just as a quick amplification on that. There was a hearing today a broad umbrella hearing on Western drought that he chaired. And several of the members who have provisions in that bill, including Congresswoman Napolitano, who of course been our champion on Title 16, was there, and a couple of other members who have provisions of bills on desal and so forth. So not only does his bill overall have broad support, there are actually specific provisions the California Democratic members on the committee have an interest in. So that gives it yet another set of anchors of support.
So is Jimmy Panetta involved in any of this?
Not explicitly, he is not. The only thing I will say where he is linked to it, though, is that Chairman Huffman has included water-related provisions of something known as the Green Act, which is a umbrella bill of renewable energy credit extensions, which is sponsored by Mike Thompson from Napa Valley in the Ways and Means Committee, and Jimmy Panetta is on that committee, and the part of those provisions are in the bill. So he has a nexus, but I think it's through another committee's jurisdiction.
I just wanted to note while we're talking about it that Congressman Huffman's bill is not included on our current tracker. It was not available at the time, but it will be on our next tracker.
It's just reintroduced.
Yeah, and actually the Feinstein bill as well. So when we talk about the tracker, I'll want to hear, well, I prefer to hear that we support on whatever Feinstein produces and whatever Huffman produces. Huffman, this is still going to be the umbrella bill that's going to pull in all the Western water stuff. Yeah.
Correct.
Thanks.
Yeah. It'll be part of that. It'll be part of that package. Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Roger.
Stephanie. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna give a quick overview about a couple different programs that were included in the American Rescue Plan Act that was approved in March, because those programs are now starting to get set up. So you're probably seeing a lot of information come out about these programs. The American Rescue Plan Act was a $1.9 trillion bill. So it was a huge bill, and it included a significant amount of money for state and local governments. So every state and local government is getting an allocation through the American Rescue Plan Act through a program called the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds Program. Special districts are not getting a particular allocation. However, they are eligible to receive funding as a sub-recipient to a state or local government. So technically the district could still receive this funding through a state or local entity. And just a couple kind of numbers to put into context how much money is circulating out there with this program. The state of California is getting $27 billion. Monterey County is getting $84.2 million. Salinas is getting $51.6 million. Monterey is getting $6.5 million. So these are significant amounts of money that both the state and local and regional governments are receiving. And what's important to note here is that on May 10th, the Treasury Department, which is the federal agency that has been put in charge of allocating these funds, they released guidance on how these funds can be used. And water and wastewater projects are an eligible use of funds, and they do not have to be projects that are directly related to the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's a broad eligibility that can be used for that. And what Treasury used kind of as the basis for determining which projects are eligible is pretty much any project that's eligible under the Clean Water SRF or Drinking Water SRF. So treatment and distribution systems, storage wells, aquifer storage and recovery, wastewater non-point source. It's a broad range of eligible project types that can be used with these funds. And what's really great about the recent Treasury guidance on these funds is that they're open to public comment. So if there are certain types of water projects that aren't currently eligible, they'd like to hear about that and why Treasury should add them as an eligible use of funds. For example, they're asking for public comments on if dam projects should be eligible. So it's something to think about for sure. And it's a lot of money circulating out there. So and I don't know if this has come up at the local level at all.
Yeah, it has, Stephanie. So before I start holding my breath and stomping my feet, which will get me nowhere, we've made a couple inquiries. So take City of Monterey, for example. If you think Clyde is going to free up any of a $4 million federal assistance to anything we want to do, that'll never happen, even though he sits on our board. We've already kind of gotten the same impression from the county. The state is planning on running a program, but it's the low income program. So they currently run a low income energy assistance program, and they're modeling this low energy water assistance program on that same program. It'll be run through the community services department or what have you. And it more so benefits ratepayers. The fact that they included infrastructure as allowable spending, that was for, let's take City of Santa Cruz as an example, which has a municipal water department. So if they want to put people back to work or create jobs locally, then that's how the infrastructure element comes into play. Same thing with the county. The county could conceivably say the spillway improvements that are needed at Nacimiento as a dam is something, because they share a board, right? They've got their own board, and then the county is also their board. So the inclusion of all this infrastructure was designed to help create jobs in affected areas to kind of get the economy humming again. As Stephanie pointed out, not necessarily directly COVID related, but we're kind of in that orphaned status where, as you can well imagine, any local city or county is going to look at our project and say, no, we have our own needs. So that's kind of our expectation. And then the state's program, as I said, is primarily geared towards ratepayer assistance. So we don't see a whole lot coming out of this, but in a place like Los Angeles, I could see a bunch of infrastructure projects being used to do job creation. So.
And Dave, to your point about the low income water assistance program, there is an additional $500 million that is going to be coming through the federal government through the American Rescue Plan. So that then totals over $1 billion nationwide.
Yeah, right.
That funding hasn't gone out the door yet, though. HHS, the Department of Health and Human Services at the federal level, is the entity that is in charge of distributing those funds, but they actually have to create a new program. So they have to go through all the federal rulemaking processes and get public comment before they can finalize rules and allocate the funds. So they're still in that process. So that money has not gotten to the state of California. Once it does, then it gets passed down to public entities to use for assisting low-income ratepayers.
Right.
One additional point on all this, that again, if the opportunity does present itself for you to pursue funding from the state's allocation, for example, again, which is getting a significant amount of money, any monies that if you did receive any funding, any of this as a pass through down to the district, it would not trigger NEPA. And this is one of the things in the guidance that was really positive, is that they're allowing these, just if the project is the only federal money going to the project are these dollars from Treasury, then you're exempted from any NEPA requirements. And again, that's a real cost savings.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll bet California won't exempt it from CEQA though.
Right. No, that's true. No, you will certainly be, continue to have to comply with that, but you won't have any extra burden associated with NEPA. That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know if there
awesome.
Yeah, any questions about all of this before we go to the tracker, and then if be happy to answer.
Yes, I have one question. It's probably Dave to you, but the Special District Association, which is active in Sacramento, are they likely to have any influence at all on getting the state to create a allocation for the special districts that are outside the loop?
Yeah, so they worked very hard in advance both on the Garamendi bill, which is going to be the first one on the tracker that we see that's going nowhere at this point, as well as local legislation for COVID relief. They did get rebuffed pretty much everywhere. I know they got, and maybe Lori, if you're still on, you could weigh in, but I know the special districts got a little bit better hearing here in the state than they did federally. I think even among staffers, and Roger, you can probably affirm this with the whole earmark discussion, they wanted letters of support from a city or a county or a duly elected governing body. And we're like, well, special districts are duly elected governing bodies. You know, why can't you take a letter from us? So I think there was just kind of a, as you move across the state, special districts are less important, move across the country than they are here on the West Coast. But yeah, we haven't seen anything special for CSDA. Most of CSDA's recent actions have been geared towards, for example, diluting that one bill that would have radically increased the Brown Act requirements for meetings, where I think, you know, they could declare victory on that one. But yeah, nothing on getting money has worked so far.
And special districts, including joint powers agencies, because they're in the same category, aren't they?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Can we turn our attention to the bill tracker? I've got, lucky for you guys on the East Coast, I have a city council meeting at 6, so we need to finish in about 15 minutes. So I would like to hear support for support on the to be introduced Huffman bill, the revised Huffman bill from a year ago, as well as whatever Feinstein's next effort is. So kind of in advance, because we know that those have positives for us regionally. So I don't know if that's something you want to just say yay to or not, but they're not on the tracker.
Oh,
Well, let's get those covered first.
Yeah. So I think, you know, Roger kind of laid out what the Huffman and Feinstein bills are going to be.
Yeah, the main thing is that, and actually what's interesting, you and perfectly acceptable, is for the committee, the district, to express support for just the provisions that you care about within these two pieces of legislation. So, you know, the things that are principally of interest to you in both bills really are the provisions which would raise the ceiling on the available Title 16 water reuse funding. That would provide a direct opportunity for you to seek an additional $10 million for expansion of the Pure Water Monterey project. And so that's, you know, would be a near-term opportunity that would be created by this legislation. You know, what also would be consistent with the legislation, both as introduced by Congressman Huffman and the bill that that Senator Feinstein's working on, the STREAM Act, would be to encourage dollars to be appropriated for the implementation at the fully authorized level reflected in the pieces of legislation. And really what we're talking about here is using the infrastructure package as the opportunity to forward fund all the money that's authorized in these two bills. And that would relieve pressure on the Bureau of Reclamation's budget going forward in the FY23 and beyond for water reuse, and make it easier for Reclamation to provide support to your project. So anyway, I think, you know, that's sort of the focus. I mean, I think that you might want to take, you know, there may be other things that you would want to express support, but that's really the core of what we see anyway of interest reflected in both bills for the district. And, you know, again, you can talk about it that way and limit your focus to those issues. And if there are others that you're aware of that you want to highlight, you certainly can do that, and not speak to the balance of the bill. And both offices would be very happy to have that, you know, support for those provisions, and not asking folks to say, I support in total, you know, the entirety of both pieces of legislation.
Are there bill numbers related to Hoffman and Feinstein?
Rebecca, what's the?
Yes, there is a bill number for for Congressman Huffman's bill. It's HR 3404.
And then Senator Feinstein's bill has not yet been introduced, so there is no bill number there.
Okay.
It's just called, it is called the Stream Act, and we provided the draft to Dave, but it is changing, frankly, daily. You know, to be honest with you, it is very much a draft bill.
Dave, are you looking for some committee support to support these two bills, the Hoffman and the Feinstein?
Yeah, kind of blind support, not having seen anything on it yet.
Well, or support the provisions as Roger was suggesting, the provisions that we care about.
Yeah.
I'm good with that too.
Okay. Then turning to the bill tracker, and Rebecca, sorry I didn't introduce you earlier. I just didn't see your name on the list, which I do now. Thank you for getting me the ledge tracker. We'll go in order, but we'll go quickly. So HR 53 or 535, we supported in the past. My understanding that this bill is pretty much dead and COVID rules are being lifted, and anything related to COVID was kind of folded into both the appropriation and the American Recovery Plan. So I don't know, that's my understanding. Roger, anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but the Garamendi bill's going nowhere at this point.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, it's certainly, they are pushing for different pieces of legislation for the inclusion and specific inclusion of special districts, but we don't expect this particular piece of legislation to go anywhere right now.
Yeah, so I would say drop it. I had earlier said support, but that was our prior position. HR 616, California passed a series of executive orders during the same kind of thing. This one's likely to disappear after COVID, becomes third page material instead of front page material. I think we just follow it at this point.
And I apologize, Dave. I had forgotten about one provision of the Garamendi bill that still easily, it could, find its way into a piece of legislation, and it's just going to have to find a home for it, frankly. But is this provision about providing special districts with access to the Federal Reserve's municipal liquidity fund?
Yeah,
that would be of significant benefit, I think, to the district, I believe, or you would know better than I would. But
Let's follow that. Let's follow that bill instead of drop it.
Okay. Yep. Excellent. HR 737, and I guess Roger, you and your staff have to just interject anywhere where if a bill is basically dying or dead, then we ought to just drop it. But this one looked like it kind of fit within our areas of interest. I just don't know, David Valadeo got himself back into Congress. I don't know if this is something that he's going to carry or others are going to carry for him.
Well, he's certainly, going to be advocating for it, looking for its inclusion in any drought relief piece of legislation. I think the core of it related to the operational flexibility provided by the current WIN Act is going to be challenging at a minimum, to get included in any legislation. It's probably something just that you'd want to track. It's going to be the primary focus given the House and Senate makeup, with the Democrats being in charge in both situations, even by slim margins, are going to make it difficult, for Mr. Valadeo's proposals to go forward. And I can just honestly tell you that Congressman Huffman, Chairman Huffman, is will oppose these provisions, particularly again the core provisions related to operational flexibility in the Delta.
Yeah. So interesting. So why don't we just follow rather than support? The next one is 866. The Fish Act. Obviously, we have an interest. Who knows where it's going to go? It's still pretty early, but we should follow that one. The next one, 895, I was suggesting dropping it, and its sister bill in the Senate is SB 209. So drop coverage on both of those. And committee members, if you oppose my suggestions, just speak right up. HR 1162. I'm sorry, I missed 1015, which is something that, I think we can support if it moves along. It's got all the good features of things that we like.
And just for one point on that bill, that the provisions of that bill are part of Chairman Huffman's bill. So it's it's definitely focused on the core area of water reuse for you.
And to your point that you made earlier, it's a Napolitano bill, and she's taken a lot of leadership on California water issues, and never hurts to support. 1162 is also a drop, and it's tied with Senate Bill 487 down at the bottom. Just don't see any purpose in this for us. 1563. Barring somebody telling me why to oppose it, it seems like something we would do to support it. It's a California centric. I doubt if much of it would find its way out to the Monterey Peninsula, but based on just the description, it sounds like something we should definitely follow, if not support. Okay, hearing no discussion there. 16.
Just quickly, Dave, what's the difference in your mind between follow and support?
Follow is, let's pay attention, and if something breaks, then I'd likely come back to the committee. If we support or oppose, then whenever one of these bills that we support or oppose pop up, then with Roger's firm and ourselves, we'll draft a letter of support and just get it out without having to reconvene the committee.
Well, let's keep 1563 as support then.
Okay, I can do that. 1660, it really doesn't apply to us, and it's wastewater primarily, so drop.
Okay.
1848, I just said follow because there's a lot in here. It's kind of a smorgasbord, but there may end up being something of interest to us. I don't know, Roger, if you got anything else on that.
I think a lot of these provisions will end up in the infrastructure package, maybe to a little bit lesser degree in terms of total spending. So if there are any of these particular elements that are of interest to you, it's probably just something for us at a minimum to track.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of these things with good ideas for infrastructure, the best ideas will percolate to the surface and all get swept in. 1915 doesn't really apply to the district, but it does apply to Pure Water Monterey relative to water pollution control programs. And so I just thought we'd keep it on the list so we can see what's happening with it.
Yeah.
2008 is a drop, and 2173 are drops, mostly because they're not relevant to what we do. 2241, I think, is a follow, and its sister bill in the Senate side is SB 1057 down below. I don't think it has much relevance to us, but it doesn't hurt. We have used the California Conservation Corps to quite a lengthy extent. So if in fact there was a civilian climate corps that could also help the district out, or any of our partner agencies with watershed or what have you, it's just something to follow, because we've got some really good benefit from the California Conservation Corps.
Is that for the Carmel River mitigation?
Yeah, mostly
work? Yeah,
channel clearing, a lot of the grunt work. And then 3023, I think that's follow or support. I don't know enough about it, so I definitely say follow for now. It could easily get rolled up into an infrastructure package. Costa is a big time water guy, probably speaks at every Aqua legislative conference, but he's definitely got a Southern Central Valley take on a lot of things. So I don't know, do you care between follow or support?
Follow.
Follow.
Okay. And then we get into the Senate bills. You know, again, Roger, stop me if anything's dead in the water. Senate Bill 29, you know, it has some aspects of things that we would pay attention to. You know, the non-point source water pollution area that, so, you know, basically state revolving fund is an EPA funding for things like non-point source water pollution. So I felt from that perspective and its relationship to Pure Water Monterey, we ought to at least follow.
Yeah, I agree.
Senate 91, here's some special districts, you know, financial assistance. So I don't know where it's going to go. It doesn't have, you know, strong numbers behind it, but we might as well support it unless we find something in there. And it has the Federal Reserve Municipal Liability Facility. So, you know, some good ideas, but again, Roger, this could get folded up into infrastructure. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, certainly, that provisions of it could be, yes.
Yeah, so Karen said follow.
Follow, I agree with Karen.
Okay. The next two, we've already dropped their House counterparts, so drop and drop are good. 914. Yeah, I just said follow. Yeah,
This is a basic, you know, reauthorization of the drinking water SRF, but it does include authorization for assistance for water reuse and stormwater as well.
Great. And then finally, 1057 we already covered with HR 2241. So I think we're done.
Let me back up just one, Dave.
Yeah.
What did we do on 487?
Drop it.
Okay.
Because it's you know, very much the same bill as HR 1162, which we said go ahead and drop.
Okay.
On S914, do we want to consider supporting that, or is it enough to just follow? What do you think?
Well, you know, I don't know if it's going to get anywhere. I think, I mean, it's got a really good outlook. I mean, those are big green numbers, so it probably will. I don't know. Why don't we change it to support? There's nothing not to like.
Just asking, yeah.
Yeah.
The bill has received broad bipartisan support, and it's sort of what it amounts to is it's going to be the floor of assistance in the infrastructure package for drinking water related programs.
Oh, good.
And so, you know, and it may go up from there, but, you know, it's unlikely to, assistance in the infrastructure package is unlikely to fall below the level reflected in this bill. This was put together on a bipartisan basis on the Senate side.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Great.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
What a rarity.
You know, that's a lot of hard work. Remember, we were waiting for all the bills to get introduced and then winnowed out through committee in Sacramento. So this was very timely. Had to do the work. Going forward, they'll all kind of get their own path. And, you know, as they come up in our next meeting, we'll at least let you know what our recent activities are, just like the next item on the agenda, which you can see our letters. We did a letter of support for Senator Padilla. That letter of support went into a package that Monterey One Water submitted for an earmark. I believe the earmark is roughly 8.7 million. It's eight something for Pure Water Monterey expansion. And so given our recent change in fortunes on negotiating, you know, hopefully a solid water purchase agreement, we would support that. So that letter already went in. The one you see to Feinstein, Rogers folks got that to their appropriations staffer. And so they'll see it. It wasn't part of the package, but it's the same earmark, the same request by Monterey One Water. And of course, the reason they're making the request is, ownership and expenditure of the funds is going to be on theirs. Then there's a joint letter or a letter joint to Nancy Skinner and Phil Ting on moving drought relief money from this package that the state of California is looking at into carving off a piece of it, a little over $500 million to statewide IRWM funding. And the reason for that is we've got a cost sharing or a funding sharing agreement with our Central Coast partners. So any money that got into that pool would get divided up. So it's kind of like free money. This is the easiest way to get it. And there was a similar letter to this one that the district lent its logo and its signature to jointly with Santa Ana Watershed Protection Agency, about 7 different entities, including Monterey One Water. I think they signed on to it as well. So that's what we've done recently. You'll see more letters like this based on your support criteria, and we'll just report back as we move forward.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Roger. Thank you for your team. Sorry you had to wait so long, but we have one last.
Thank
item. We have one last item. Sorry, moving along quickly. Any particular items for future discussion? Well, you have a year-end meeting. I'm not sure what you're talking about here.
Oh, Joelle wanted us to schedule the next meeting.
Yeah. So committee members, Roger's group and John, the approved calendar for this committee places November 23rd as the last meeting date in the calendar year. As noted in the February committee meeting, members addressed that this date and time may not work due to the holiday season. Now, although the item on the agenda states to set a meeting date and time, I would like to mention that my intent is to get a general feel with the group as to what month we should schedule the committee meeting for. So I just have October, November, and December as listed on the agenda. And then once you guys tell me what month works for the group, then I'll send out a doodle poll. And then at the next meeting in August, I think it would be best for the committee to approve a revised meeting schedule for calendar year 2021.
Yeah, and that's because the Tuesday is right before Thanksgiving. But
so let's ask Roger maybe what month makes sense in terms of the legislative calendar.
On the federal side, it's you could do a meeting between Christmas and New Year's, and that would, if you really want to know what the sort of the latest is. So I think you just it really they tend to push things to the end. We certainly we'll give you a good update on where things are. The infrastructure package should be completed, we would hope, by November at the latest. And so so any of those times, but the later you push it, this is sort of the more information we're likely to have on the federal side. Until if between, realistically, obviously, if it is acceptable to have something between Thanksgiving and Christmas, in the first or second week in December, then that gives us more chance. But again, we can go the other way too. It just doesn't, some of the things may not be wrapped up by then. That's all.
Yeah.
Will we want to be active in the, September, October, November?
Well, we're going to meet in August. We've got a regularly scheduled meeting in August where we'll see where any of these, the bills have gone. We, the district, aren't really active right now doing any specific lobbying because we don't have either a specific bill, an earmark, or until a week ago, we didn't even really have the expansion project going. So,
yeah. Well, I think if we just look at target late October, early November and see what falls out, because I just want to honor maybe starting earlier as an option that might help you guys around Washington.
Yeah, well, let's look at the second and third week of December. The first week is really the November 30th week. So we'll look at all three of those and see if there's some gaps in there, and we'll just put out a doodle poll or something.
Okay, that's good for me.
Okay.
Well,
I got to get on with Delray Oaks City Council meeting, so I will chat with you all later.
all right. Thank you,
Thank
Dave.
you, Dave.
All right, thanks, Dave. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
John and Lori too, but the whole team from Washington, thank you. And
Thank you.
it was
Thank you all.
informative. It was very informative for me. I appreciate the time you took.
Yeah, same
Great.
here. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank
all.
you.
Okay,
very much.
meeting
Bye.
adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, George.